Welcome back, everyone, to Master Your Life. We got a special guest here. You know, I always say it's a good friend of mine. This guy's like a brother. We grew up on the same block, literally, not figuratively. We have Justin Dillon, the man of everything wrestling, over 600,000 followers on social media. That's just one platform that I checked, right? I'm sure it's a lot more. Like I said, the king of all things wrestling, digital and content creator, a good friend, like a brother. Welcome, brother. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me. I know we've planned to do this for years, and I'm glad we're finally doing it.
100%. I think we chatted about this a couple of years ago. You know, a little bit of a, I would say, late bloomer. But I'm glad that you came aboard today, man. You know, I guess we all will start off where it's natural. I guess tell our listeners what fascinated you about wrestling.
Okay. First things first, before we get into the wrestling thing, I want to say it's actually, I remember when I first saw you start putting out content.
Sorry, you mean or wrestling?
You, like when I first saw you putting out content, you were doing these interviews and stuff. And blame this on me having a sister and like a bunch of girlfriends. But I'm like, that's such a Scorpio thing to put yourself out there like that.
I am a Scorpio.
I'm a Scorpio too.
Yeah.
So I'm like that. So I'm like, it's such a crazy thing that you're putting yourself out like that, because most Scorpios that I know are the ones that will try to bet on themselves and put themselves out like that and like just wing it and have no shot 'em.
100%.
You know what I mean? I'm like, it's actually pretty funny. But the wrestling thing is, I don't know. You know my older brother. He was a wrestling fan in the 80s. Yeah. Like, he was a Hulkamaniac when he was a kid and a teenager. He liked wrestling. He stopped liking wrestling. I don't think he cares about it all anymore.
We don't ever stop. We just kind of pretend.
That's fair. I mean, at one point I went to his office and he had a Hulk Hogan action figure.
There you go.
And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But it's his fault, right? So, like, I'm 10 years younger than him, and from the moment I can remember, there was wrestling stuff around me, whether I had the magazines, the VHS tapes, the action figures. Like, I just always had wrestling around me. I got hooked, and I think for me, I think there's always a period of time for everybody, right, that you grow up and you kind of realize what it is and that it's scripted, it's not really real. It's how do you stay with it, right? Like, how do you stay a fan? I started looking at it from a different perspective. I'm like, oh, this is like everything else that we enjoy. Mm-hmm. Whether, like, you know, hundreds of people out there will be like, man, like, I love the Avengers and I love Marvel. It's all fake too, right? But for those 2-3 hours that you're watching that movie, you're going to suspend your disbelief and you're going to believe in it. And that's the way I look at wrestling. And I think, and I always talk about this, throughout my life, I knew really early on I couldn't be a professional wrestler. I don't know if you remember, but we used to wrestle each other all the time. They're called second year brother guys. We would all beat each other up on trampolines and whatnot. And I used to always get hurt. I've broken so many bones. I'm like, I don't think I'm athletic.
You were the youngest too, right? So it's like not
one of the
fair.
youngest.
You were running with the big dogs the whole time.
We had a hierarchy, right? Like, your brother and Steve were the oldest.
Yeah,
then it was me. Then there was a couple younger than me, but it ran off the hierarchy. And I just knew, I'm like, I don't think I like want to be a professional wrestler. Like, this doesn't seem that fun. I'd ring my head and like ring my bell and all that stuff. I'm like, But I always want to do something with wrestling. And I think it's so weird because, you know, I took creative writing in school. Because I was like, oh, maybe I can become like a wrestling writer in the back of my head. I didn't think I was actually capable to do anything like that. But I was like, oh, like, writing's something I've always enjoyed. Maybe I'll do that. Then I was like a big fan of Mad Men for a minute. So I'm like, marketing. I'm gonna be a marketer, do this and that with marketing. So I took marketing, got my degree in that. And then I just feel like there's so many little things that I did with wrestling in the back of my head and never thought I could actually do like anything with wrestling, because like, how do you get involved with wrestling if you're not a wrestler? Like, no one knows the steps of how to do that. There's no real guideline. Like, if you want to be a wrestler, you find a school, you start training, you start working the independents locally. Right. There's a way that you can get there. There's no way for me to get there.
So you wanted to be a part of wrestling somehow, some way. You're like, listen, I can't wrestle.
Yeah.
It's not in my cards.
No.
I'm getting too injury prone here. How can I be involved here without that? And you found a way.
Yeah, I found a way.
And let's talk about that way. How did you get in there?
It's just crazy because, first things first, I want to give a quick story about me being injury prone. And this is something a lot of people don't know, because I always said it happened playing street hockey. And everyone just kind of bought that. In grade 7, I broke my wrist. I broke my arm. And the only person that witnessed it was my sister. We had a computer in our living room, and then our living room was right there. And I was watching wrestling, and I tried dropping like a front missile drop kick into my couch.
To
no one. Just trying it.
Practicing.
Just practicing, you know. And I smoked, I smoked the ground, and I'm like, first my sister's laughing at me because I'm in pain. Like, older sister would. She's like, oh, what the hell are you doing? Whatever, right? Yeah. And I'm like, no, I think I'm really hurt. And my bone actually popped out of my wrist right here.
Oh, really? That bad?
And I didn't realize it was that bad till the next day because I went to the hospital the next day. Like I slept on
walked
it, like,
it off.
not even. Yeah, I was like,
Okay,
oh, it's not that bad. Like, went to the hospital next day. They're like, dude, your bone popped out. They put me down and like popped it back in and like whatever. Stitched us. It's like a little tiny stitch, but like they stitched it or whatever. And
it's funny because I want to touch upon that. Back in those days, when you got hurt, the last person you could tell is your parents.
100%.
Because you're going to get hurt one more time then. Right?
Yeah, and then it was also my fault. They're like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
That's not like, how'd you do that? And also, like, I was in grade 7, so I was already like 13, 14 years old. Like, what are you doing?
100%.
So like, that's like one of those times where I was like, I don't think I want to be a professional wrestler.
Right.
I don't think I want to figure this out. So it all happened by accident, how, like, it all came together. I just think it's really cool that if you really think about it, like I said, I took creative writing and I said I took marketing and I did that. And I ended up doing all those things like social media marketing with wrestling, and I write articles and I was a big fan of like late night television, like Jay Leno and David Letterman, and like I like even watching like the old Johnny Carson episodes, and I was like, oh, I don't think I'd ever be an interviewer though. And I had a lot of friends that went to BCIT, and they'd be like, oh, you should like do broadcast journalism, like you talk a lot, like we see these other kids doing it, we can totally see you doing it. And I'm like, I don't think like that's for me, yada yada yada.
Interesting.
And now I'm like out here doing interviews, and I interviewed Brian Danielson here in Vancouver in front of 300 people on stage. This coming October, I'll be interviewing Bret Hart here in Vancouver
Bret Hart,
at a card convention. You guys should all come check that out. More information will be released about that soon. But it's like, I never planned for any of this. It never happened in a way where I was like, I'm going to start an Instagram page, because that's where it started, was the Instagram page, and I'm going to somehow get involved in professional wrestling.
What year was that in?
2014, so it's been 10 years.
10
in
years.
February, 10 years, February 22nd. The first 3 years of running this account was funny because I created it. I feel like I say this all the time. It's getting redundant, but I created it because my ex-girlfriend didn't want me to have Instagram.
Your ex-girlfriend wouldn't let you have Instagram?
Then.
Even back then, that's kind of forward-thinking.
Yeah,
especially back then.
She didn't want me to have Instagram, and she had a lot of different reasons why, and I'm never going to all to her.
Fair enough.
But I deactivated my personal Instagram account.
Yeah.
And I was working at a phone company booth at Lougheed Mall and bored out of my mind. And I was like, you know what? I have all these wrestling pictures I kept kind of like saving and whatnot. I was like, well, it'd be cool to share them and like talk to people about wrestling and stuff. Because at that time, like a lot of my friends that used to like wrestling didn't really watch anymore. And I was like, I remember being a kid, being on like forums on the web and talking to random people and stuff. I'm like, let's create something like that. And I went to Twitter and I'm like, there's already way too many wrestling things on here and everyone's like negative. Instagram was kind of new, came out 2012.
Just pictures back then, right? It
was just pictures, no stories, no videos, no nothing. And I was like, all right. And I've already did some stuff in marketing with Instagram for other companies. So I was like, oh, I think I could like run a wrestling page, like whatever. It'll be like secret, it'll be fun. I created it. I went on my personal page before I deactivated it, and I blocked all my family and friends, like everybody I knew. You as well, most likely. I just blocked everyone.
I don't think I had.
Okay, I blocked anyone that I was following already. They were blocked. Everyone's now unblocked, but at that point, like everyone was blocked. Because I'm like, I want this to be like super secret. Like I didn't want anyone to know it was me, and that also gave me the advantage of like making a fool out of myself, doing dumb things, posting dumb things, and getting away with it. And that's how it started. I had no intention of it like, oh, I'm going to get involved with wrestling this way, or I'm going to be able to get to know wrestlers, or I'll be able to get these opportunities to do really cool things and network. Like none of that dawned on me at that time. I think that only started dawning on me around like 2016, like 2-3 years later, because I was like, oh, like things are catching on, and certain people were following the page. Next thing, wrestlers were following the page. The whole Hart family ended up following the page, and like around 2016, we had The Rock, LeBron James, and The Weeknd all following this page. I didn't even follow WWE. As time went on, so I was like, oh, there's something here. And everyone kept telling me there's something here. And then when I wanted to go to WrestleMania in 2016, I printed a bunch of shirts for fun. Like I was like, I'll print a bunch of shirts to try to sell them because I had a following. All
right, so there's a lot of stuff here. Let me try to break a couple of these down.
For sure.
Because I know, you know what, to be honest, I've studied you a little bit.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Because I want to be able to effectively...
and I feel like I've said a lot of this before, so give me something different.
And I want to dive into a little bit deeper of those subjects, right? Because, I mean, we understand that. You have the page. Now, a couple of things you touched upon. You said that, of course, there was a relationship aspect why you kept yourself private on Instagram, and you had to basically step away from the herd, so to speak,
100%,
and branch out on your own. Let's talk a little bit about that. You know, did you find that is also the reason what helped you kind of catapult yourself to say, you know what, I'm not worried about what people think anymore. I'm able to be myself. And was that a catalyst to improvement in your life? How do you find that?
I think so, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think if people knew about it when I first started it, and they made comments about it, maybe I wouldn't have like been as out there as I was. And I always tell that to people. I'm like, the whole era of me, and I always jokingly call it my Batman era. My whole, being Batman on the Wrestling Classic. But then I go to the bank because I got a job at the bank in 2014. Put on my suit and go to work like awesome. I'm Bruce Wayne, right? Like, I'm like, my whole Batman era was fun because it made it more exciting for me. And then that was the thing. Like, I knew why I was blocking everyone because I knew, I'm like, you know what? I don't get me wrong, like I'm very fortunate, like we talked about, like even growing up in the cul-de-sac, like everyone knew I liked wrestling. They're doing wrestling things. Everyone would come to my house, play the video games and stuff. Like I was the wrestling guy as much as like, say your brother and Steve were the car guys, right? Like, right? Yeah, so 100%. We all had our thing, right? I approved of their car love and they approved of my wrestling love. And
you guys live a coalition together.
Yeah. So like, right? And I honestly like want to say something about growing up in a cul-de-sac like that too, is because we all accept each other for like the silly stuff we did. Yeah, we made fun of each other, and there was a little bit of bullying, but I also think that made us stronger to getting
razzing each other.
Yeah, right? People razzing you and talking about you because you're like, whatever, right? It made your skin grow a little thick, but yeah, if I didn't do that, I think it would have been different. I felt like because nobody knew who I was, it allowed me to be a little bit more crazier, allowed me to put other stuff out there.
And we talked about that a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, ultimately, what I've learned, and from other people as well, I think you tell me if you agree with this or not, sometimes you feel like you got to make it outside of your city for your city to accept you. Do you feel like something like that kind of happened?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I think I always like use like Drake and Justin Bieber as examples.
Yeah,
Like,
they made it in the U.S.
They made it big, and then they started repping Toronto, right? I'm like, there's a lot of times where I feel like a lot of people come into wanting to do something creative, and they want to rep Vancouver. Like, I'm from Vancouver. Like, I want to do this for our city. But it's like, if you thought a little bit more global and then brought it back, you'll probably have a better opportunity to rep your city. Yes. You know what I mean? Yeah. Than just repping Vancouver to the people in Vancouver. I knew wrestling was a global thing right off the bat. Mm-hmm. As much as I didn't know what I was doing, I'm like, I can connect with people from all around the world. Absolutely. That was always my thing. I'd say all the time. I'm like, the Wrestling Classic is a place. I want this to be the home for wrestling fans. It doesn't matter how old you are, what gender you are, where you live. I want to bring wrestling fans together. Right. If you used to watch, I want you to kind of see the new stuff. And if you watch now, I kind of want you to know the stuff we grew up on. Right. And that's what the page was for me. And then we can talk about it. We can debate. We can agree to disagree. And I knew that was a global thing. I was never stuck on the mind of like, I'm from here. I want to rep here. I want to be the wrestling guy from here. And I think that's something that people would benefit from knowing. If there was any advice I can give them, like just try to think bigger than just here. Right. Because I've tried to mess with the creative scene here a lot, and everyone's super dope and they're super cool, but there's just a lot of people that either just, I'm from Vancouver, I want to rep Vancouver. Oh, I'm Punjabi, I want to support the other Punjabi creators. Oh, they put themselves in these limitations. Like, no, support everybody. So, like, and try to put yourself to the whole world. That's scarier than just putting yourself to locally,
100%.
And then you're stuck on believing. So now if anyone that I grew up with or anyone locally wanted to talk crap about what I'm doing, I'm like, dude, there's people around the world that love what I'm doing. Why do I care about what you think about here? You know what I mean?
It's funny you say that. It kind of reminds you of someone like Diljit Dosanjh as well.
Yeah.
He's an international star. All over the world.
I'm no Diljit, but yeah.
But you don't know who he is?
Yeah, no. I'm not him, but
no. But you know what?
He's a huge star.
There's a comparison here, right? There might be different levels or different frequencies, but there's a little bit of a comparison here because, making it outside globally, being an international superstar, but he still goes to his roots. Yeah. And people love him. I know I do, and I'm sure you do as well.
100%.
Because he knows where he came from, and he's grounded by that. And like yourself, like you said, hey, listen, I made it in a lot of different circles. Yeah. But this is where I'm from.
No, and I love repping Surrey. And we were talking about this on the phone before I got it, and you're like, moving out of Surrey or whatever. And I'm like, I come to Surrey now, and I come hang out to, like, the Super Bowl just happened, and I went to go hang out with a bunch of people to watch the Super Bowl in Surrey. Yeah. And I brought my friend from Toronto with me because he came down for a bit. And I was just like, there's something about this that, like, it's home. You know what I mean? Like, it just, it's comfortable. Like, I put myself in a lot of uncomfortable positions. I put myself with a lot of strangers I haven't met and get bad imposter syndrome. I'm in rooms sometimes feeling like, what am I doing in this room? I don't belong here. It happens to me a lot. Yeah. I've
How do you manage those emotions?
I just play along. I just play the game. Yeah. But it's genuinely like, and there'll always be someone that I know better than a lot of other people, and I'll go to that person and I'll be like open about it. Like, I feel weird. Like, I don't know, am I supposed to be here? Like, and there's always someone that's like, dude, like, you belong here. Like,
it's part of it.
Yeah, like, you're a part of this now. Like, you're way too deep in it. Like, you belong. Like, no one's batting an eye that you're here. Like, they're like, oh, Justin's here. Like, and I forget that because sometimes I'm in these spaces with like I'll be at a hotel lounge and I'm sitting there with a couple of wrestling buddies and I look across the bar and it's Ric Flair and I'm like, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? Like, what am I sitting here and Ric Flair's right over there? You know what I mean?
So we got to talk about Flair for a second. We got to talk about him for a second. Is that guy cool as shit or what?
The greatest. The greatest.
Okay.
Oh, dude. I mean, I've met him so many times. So a fun fact about Ric Flair, and this is also part of the story, when Ric Flair had a marketing company that took over his social media to help like build a social media brand. And when they first launched his Instagram, they reached out to me to help them with content.
Yeah.
So technically, I helped launch Ric Flair's Instagram.
No way.
Videos and content a lot in 2015, 16, 17. At the same thing with The Undertaker. Have not met The Undertaker yet, though.
Okay.
But I've met Ric Flair. I've met Ric Flair multiple times, and Ric Flair's wife, Ric Flair's daughter, and me are really cool with each other. And I even just met him this past November again, right?
Yeah.
And I've been trying to get him on my show, and like all of his people, like his managers, his people that all like help him with his stuff, the person he does like the Ric Flair Drip marijuana brand with, like,
right.
I know all of them, right? They all know me, I know them. We're all cool with each other. They wanted Rick to do the interview. They just had to convince him because he's like, I don't, and I'm like, man, I've met this guy so many times. He never remembers who I am because he's old, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
he's at his run of partying in the
yeah. So then like I met him again in LA in November, and like I said, I was sitting there and he was at the bar, and I went and said what's up and stuff, and just kind of whatever. Politely though, I didn't introduce myself too hard. Say I wanted to do the interview, and then we finally did the interview, and like I think we're cool now. He said, "Well, next time I see you, I'll buy you a beer and stuff." But it's just so funny because it's Ric Flair.
Yeah, it's Ric Flair.
Yeah, like it's
what's the saying again? It's like I can't remember.
The kiss stealing, wheeling, the jet flying, limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheeling, dealing, son of a gun. And I can't help but hold these alligators down or something like that. Yeah. He's a man. But no, so back to that though. Like I do think I think I had to separate myself from everyone. And I talked about this before. Like I had to separate myself from everyone to do something different and then come back. I think it would have been harder to do if I wasn't in the mix. But I didn't separate myself by choice. I feel like my life's so weird because so many things happen just the way it happened. Like it's almost kind of like it's destiny, and I don't.
The universe started.
The universe,
let's get into that.
Because I want to be honest, because when I moved out of 74th, and we moved out of that block, and we moved to White Rock, right? It was like 15 minutes away.
That's a world of a difference back then.
It was a world of a
difference.
I went over there. I started working at Home Depot. I made these new friends. I was going to these house parties. I tell them about like the stuff that used to happen to us when we'd go out.
These are real parties, probably.
Yeah,
not the parties that you're used to at 74
I'm like,
area.
we get scraps, and there'd be like mace, and I got macheted across the hand one time, and they're like, "Where'd you grow up?" And
I'm like, "Hey man, do you want anything to eat?"
I'm like, I grew up 15 minutes that way, and they're like, "Why is this so crazy over there?"
It's a different world, man.
And I think because of that, and then also even now moving even further, I'm like, every time we move, and it's never my choice to move, to be honest. So like every time we moved, it's given me the ability to kind of start fresh in like a new chapter.
Yep.
This doesn't sound so lame, and it sounds very like main character syndrome. But sometimes I like to think of my life like it's a TV show, and those seasons, right? Like, and I feel like I have done a really good job to like keep it fresh. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like meet new people and expand my world and go new places and just adventure and this and that, because I don't know, man. I don't know what it is, but I just felt like once I left Surrey and then I was by myself a lot, because there was a lot of reasons. Like I couldn't go down there without the potential that I was gonna like drink and drive and come home. Or I was going to be stuck down there and I had to stay overnight. So it was easier for me to just make the decision and be like, I'm just going to stay in White Rock. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
totally. And it's not
I'm just going to stay here. You know what I mean? Like, and there's nothing against anyone down there. It's just like, it's bad on me. And then also there was a period, and drinking is a thing in our culture, and it's a thing where when I would drink, I didn't like the person I was too much, to be honest.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I don't drink as much as I used to. I drink very rarely. I socially drink. If I go on a trip, we'll be drinking and stuff. But like when I'm in Vancouver, I don't like. The last time I drank was probably with my buddy from Toronto. It was at the Super Bowl. That's probably the last time I drank. Like I don't drink, and I just think like I needed that. Like I needed that time where I was by myself and I could be creative. And I could sit there and like just obsess about this wrestling thing that I could potentially make happen. And the more time went by and the more people started following me, like I said, the more I started thinking like, oh, something's here, like something could happen. And I remember working at the bank and being like mad about like getting in trouble for the dumb things, like our observations. And my manager would be like, dude, if you want to do that full time, like why don't you just do that full time? Because like you're not happy here. You know you want to do that. And he would even say too, he's like, you do have something there. Like, that's cool. Like, there's something there. Like, figure it out.
Speaking of that, have something, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like, not just yourself, anybody that's successful in wrestling, What is that X factor they have to have? Or what do you see that's common? What's a commonality? That's something. Is it like the personality, athleticism?
I mean, okay, if you're a wrestler and stuff, like all that type of stuff matters. Like having the personality and athleticism and being able to, like if we're gonna talk about wrestling, like you gotta be able to talk, but you also gotta know the fundamentals. Like there's a lot of things. Right? There's a lot of different X factors. There's something I've been hearing a lot recently in the past like 6-7 months, and I also think it applies to me as well, and it applies to 100%. A lot of people that are like kind of dreamers and try to go achieve things that are impractical, a little crazy, and mastering their own life on their own terms. And it's this idea of being a delusional optimist.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that like I've heard a lot recently where I'm like, oh, that's really a thing, because I think in the weirdest way I'm a delusional optimist. Yeah. Things could be going horrible, but I'm like, I look at all the things that went cool and like, oh no, but I have the idea that I can literally do anything.
Yeah.
And even if I think like something's not going to happen, I'll still try, because I feel like half the stuff I've already done shouldn't have happened.
There you go.
Does that make sense? Like half the things I've already accomplished and achieved like should not be a thing. Mm-hmm. Why am I in this? Why do all these people? Why did I interview Stone Cold Steve Austin last year?
Yeah.
Why?
Did you ever imagine yourself?
No. And there was a time like a year before that happened, my buddy would be like, okay, so who's your dream interview? I'm like, oh, I really want to get Bret Hart. And that was something I knew was going to happen eventually, because I'm friends with the entire family, but I didn't want to push it to annoy them. Like they knew, I knew, and it'll happen when it happens. And then he's like, but who's someone you want to interview that you think you wouldn't be able to interview? I'm like, oh, like probably Stone Cold. But I never thought it was going to happen. And then they emailed me like, hey, do you want to come to the 316 event? I'm like, can I interview Stone Cold? You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that's me being the delusional optimist. Like, why would I even ask them? Like, in my mind, I'm also a little pessimistic, because in my mind, my expectation was they're going to say no. But
you might as well
ask. They're going to say no, but I might as well ask anyways. But then they said yes.
But what did Stone Cold say? He said something good, positive.
He says he's got a future in this business, kid.
That's a big.
And he said that because he enjoyed the quick 8-minute interview we did on the fly.
There you go.
And then like I carry that with me, and it's just like, I think the X factor a lot of people have to have is you got to be a delusional optimist. You have to believe in your own shit. Are we allowed to swear?
Of course.
Okay, you have to believe in your own shit. Like you have to. If you don't believe in your own shit, why is anyone else can believe it?
100%.
You have to believe what you're doing so hard that other people are like, oh my, it's kind of like saying fake it like you make it. But even when you've already made it, like you still have to believe in your shit so hard.
In yourself. You got that internal.
Yeah, like you have to believe that even if things aren't gonna go your way, you think things aren't gonna happen, you still know that like it's a term that like someone said it to me recently to like stop being so humble, like you're him. Yeah. Like you got to believe you're either him or her. Like you know what I mean? Like you got to believe you're him, and you got to believe you're her. And a lot of people that have a different definition of success or may not be so happy with their own life will label you as arrogant or cocky or, oh man, he's too much about himself. But it's like you have to be to succeed at some crazy stuff. There's no plan for a lot of this stuff. You don't get a degree, get a job, work your way up, try to move up, do really well in meetings. Like there's no like outline for what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
I just have to keep doing it and believe that whatever I'm doing, hopefully something gets noticed, the next opportunity happens, they see that I'm doing this stuff, and something comes out of it. It's literally keeping on doing the thing with a positive attitude, and also like believing that like I'm somebody, because if I don't, then it's not going to work, right? And it's an idea of like just being a delusional optimist, just being optimistic about anything, like being optimistic about the future, and just being a little bit delusional, because you have to believe the craziest things are
100%
possible. Like you have to believe the impossible is possible. If you don't, then how are you ever going to get there? Because you're not even going to try. You think it's out of you think it's not going to happen. It's way too out there. I can't ever do that. Like you technically can. I was the weird kid that when we were like younger, like right out of high school, and we'd all drink at a friend's house, and I'd have a little too much to drink, and I'd start giving everybody these lectures. I remember specifically the places like in my buddy's kitchen being like, hey guys, like isn't it so crazy? Like we live in a world where we can literally do anything now. Like we have the power. So hey, you want to be
hear how that went.
Yeah, you want to be a journalist. Like, but then I also understand everyone's circumstances are different. Everyone has different responsibilities. Everyone's household has different circumstances and responsibilities. I learned a long time ago that I feel like where you land in your family structure also plays a role. I've noticed a lot of the youngest kids are similar to me and will go out there and do whatever, but like the oldest kids feel like they got a lot more weight on their shoulders. So like I'm just gonna speak for as an older sibling. You know what? We're the trailblazers. We got to make the path, I feel like. And the path, you got to like, for example, you got Hulk Hogan. Yeah.
Hulk Hogan and whoever's before him, they blaze the path for people like The Rock.
Yeah.
And then Rock for the.
Well, no, it's true though, because like if I didn't see my brother do so well with whatever he was doing, and that was his job and whatever, I wouldn't think like I could, right?
Yeah.
You know, like, and also if I didn't know that he was doing so well that he was holding down the family situation in the sense that I wasn't, I was holding it down in a different way,
100%.
then I wouldn't be free to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, so I'll never take him working his ass off for granted.
Yeah, it's a unit. You're a family unit, right?
You know, his hard work and success is the reason why I'm allowed to run around, travel, and just show up places and try to make things happen. And I understand that. My sister's creativity of like web design and branding, and that's what she does. Right? She does a lot of web design and social media marketing for companies and SEO stuff. I learned that all from her and put it into my own stuff. Nice. I took a little bit from everybody and put it into my own stuff to create my own thing. But I strongly do believe that like you have to just like try, and I feel like sometimes people are scared to try.
But let's touch upon that further.
Yeah,
you know, some people can try from 2014 and then build it up for 10 years. I think a couple of things that we haven't outlined yet is you had a time when everything got taken away from you.
Yeah. So you did your research. That's crazy.
I want to touch upon that. Let's talk about a pivotal moment like that. And how did you get through that? Because let's be honest, bro. You started doing it, and it took time. We're like, wow, look at this, and now it's getting taken away, and you had to rebuild. Let's talk about that.
So I thought it was so cool that I was falling under everyone's radar, and I was like this popular person that all wrestlers knew.
Mysterious guy, Batman.
Yeah, but both companies knew who I was, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I saw like WWE like stealing some of the content that I would post and doing it my way. Like I you know, and I was like, oh, I'm like under everyone's radar. Everyone knows. I'm like, there's celebrities and stuff that follow me that don't follow them. Like I thought it was cool. It was not cool because that also got me in trouble, and it made me too much under their radar.
Very cool.
It's cool, but not cool. It's like, you know, when you're too under the radar, like, oh, now it's like. Now they're watching everything you do, right? Because now they know you're somebody, you got to follow, and people rock with you. Like, who is this person? And there's some people that didn't like me, and I honestly don't know why they didn't like me that worked at the WWE. And AEW just started as a new company, and they were big on like, yeah, just post whatever you want, promote our company as much as you can. I used to post videos a lot. I used to post a lot of, and I think that's what helped build the page. Was a lot of old school promos and matches. Like I know when I posted a Ric Flair promo, Rock promo, everyone was probably sending that to their group chats, and that was really what was playing around. I'm not allowed to post videos anymore. They took it away in 2020. When I got it back, because I was friends with a lot of people on the social media team at WWE, they helped me get it back.
So, like, what I wanted to touch upon is, I know they gave it back.
Yeah,
but let's talk about where like that tenacity came from. Like, were you like, you know what, forget it. You know what, I'll just try back again. Like, so did you dig deep? Was there a time where you felt like, you know what, I can't believe this happened. I worked
100% can't believe it happened. Because you know what was weird? I had a couple of claims came, and I felt like it was coming. So like mentally, I was like, I feel like I'm about to lose this page, and I had no control over it, right? Because even trying to get it back, like I had to find someone at WWE that I knew that wasn't a wrestler that actually had some pull, which was hard at that time. Now I think it would be a lot easier because I know a lot more people. But back then, I'm like, it was 2020. I was like, I know some people, not a lot of people, but that whole year was crazy. Let me just outline the year really quickly. First, obviously, the pandemic happened. I got stuck at home.
Yeah. The
years prior to that was like, especially 2018-19 was all about traveling, networking, being at WrestleMania every year, I stayed 6 months in California. I built a whole network out there. Like it was a lot of traveling and doing stuff, right? 2019 was a little rough. Like I said, if I think of my life as a TV show, but I feel like it was important. I look at every year and I'm like, what was so important about the year? Like, what did I learn? I think 2019 was really cool because that's when I reconnected with a lot of my friends from high school. That's when I went to like 11 weddings. Oh, wow. Okay, and your brother got married. Like everybody got married that year. And then I saw everybody, and it was kind of like, it reminded me of like who I was prior to the Wrestling Classic. But that's an important part, right? Because I was like, when I went to all those things and I saw all my old friends I grew up with, some that I drifted with that I want to make sure I was at the weddings at least because like, there was some of my best friends growing up. I wanted to be at your wedding.
Yep.
That kind of reminded me like, oh, like they're like, because I think around 2019ish, because 2016, 17, 18, 19 was so hard Wrestling Classic that I almost started feeling like that's who I was. Like I lost Justin a little bit, to be honest. And you
kind of immersed yourself in everything,
and especially
lost your identity a bit.
When me and my ex broke up in 2016.
Yep.
So like we broke up in 2016. Like my distraction to get over that was, let's build this as hard as I can. This wrestling thing is gonna be everything.
There you go.
And I went hard at it, right? So then, 2016, 17, 18 was going hard, building it as hard as I could. And I was growing and networking, going to California for 6 months, going to every show I can go to, driving down to Seattle, every Defy Wrestling show. And then 2019 was a little bit of a roadblock because I started working with my brother a bit. That lasted like 9 months. My heart was not in it. Had to get out. Went to a bunch of weddings in the summer. Kind of remembered like Justin before Wrestling Classic. He still exists, And then early 2020, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to WrestleMania this year. I'm gonna yada yada, and then the world shut down. There's a couple of reasons why that was a positive for me, because that's when I decided I was gonna start doing interviews like fully. Because I'm like, I'm home. I'm stuck at home and do interviews. Okay, started a podcast with this wrestler named Shad Gaspard. He was a part of this tag team called Crime Time in WWE back in like the early 2000s, mid 2000s, and he's like, and he's in like Birds of Prey and a bunch of movies and stuff. He started acting afterwards and everything. And he was like, oh, listen, dude, I'm stuck at home too. All my stuff's on pause. Why don't we start a weekly podcast? I'm like, all right, let's start a weekly podcast. And it was him believing in me enough. That's how I've gotten so far, that there's a professional wrestler that was in WWE, popular, and that believes in me enough that he wants to do a podcast with me week to week, talking about wrestling in his life and whatnot. We did 5 episodes and he passed away. He went after our 5th episode. He went, and then we talked for like 30 minutes after we went off the air. And he's like, "I'm gonna take my kid to the beach, and me and my wife and kid are gonna go to the beach. I'll hit you up later. Let's schedule for next week." And keep sending me like memes and videos and stuff, so we have stuff to talk about. I'm like, yeah, for sure. He went to the beach. Next morning, I wake up, he was missing. And then by I think Sunday or Monday, his body was found. So basically, they went out swimming, and then the tide came in really strong, and they brought a thing to come get them. But he was like a 6'2", like 300-pound guy, like jacked and everything. That he's like, take my son, come back and get me, because they didn't have enough room, right? So they took his son, and then when we came back together, they couldn't find him. So that happened in 2020. So that happened like in June 2020. So I took a break from interviewing this and that. Then, so like everything seemed like I took a break, and then I don't know, these claims came out of nowhere, and then I was like, I think I'm gonna lose the page. And then July, I lost the page. And the first thing that happened to me when I lost the page, like literally, I remember I went for a drive. I woke up, looked at it. I'm like, oh, they took it down. Oh, okay. And I hopped in my car.
Whatever about it? Or
I hopped in my car, and I was like, it was kind of like a weight lifted off my shoulders.
Interesting.
It kind of felt like I didn't have to be the Wrestling Classic anymore. And I was playing this character so hard for 5 years, because in those, from 2016 to 2020, like, there was a transition of, okay, I'm no longer Batman, putting my face out there, owning the brand, being the face of the brand, doing interviews, getting my show on Dash Radio, like networking, going to WrestleCons and meeting wrestlers. Like there was a lot of like putting myself out there, being this guy that like
always on,
right?
Yeah.
And I spent more time in that world than I actually spent in my personal world with my personal friends, hanging out with them and stuff. I was doing that way more than I was here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people sometimes don't understand. Like, they see all the cool stuff you do, but I'm like, do you know how much like I missed in like just kind of, and I don't really think I missed anything. I have no regrets, but like there's a lot of like things that I probably should have been there for that I wasn't.
The small stuff.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And like
the small things.
You take certain things for granted when you have the freedom to do whatever. And like 2018 was when I fully was like, okay, I'm out of banking. Went full time with this stuff. Went to California for 6 months, came back, and then it's just like all I cared about was making that happen. So when I lost it, kind of felt like, I can kind of do anything now, and I don't have to do that. And I posted every single day. Till even now, every single day since February 22nd, 2014. There's not been a day I've not posted something.
Every single day.
Every single day. So and it looks like a less post, because when I got my page back, I had to archive all the old video posts. I had to take them all down. So that's why it's like way less posts. But I posted every single day. And if I didn't post on my main feed, that story definitely has like 30 million thousand posts. So like, wow. So like I posted every single day. So to be like, wake up one morning and be like, I don't have to, was weird. Obviously, I then eventually I was like, okay, well, I have this merchandise page. My backup page was a merchandise page where everyone was like repping my shit. And I made that. Like, okay, I'll post on this page still and let people know I'm still around. But I started reaching out to other companies, like, how can I work with you and your team? How can I bring the Wrestling Classic to you guys and just be like a personality in your stuff? Which is something I don't think I would have done unless that happened, right?
Yeah,
because I was just trying to do my own thing, and I got to network with some more people that way. I grew the backup page to like 45K, and
isn't that amazing though?
Yeah,
you're on one channel, one door just literally got closed, like shut, and then you're like, meh. It's all good. Another door presents itself, or you created another opportunity.
And it's weird because like I did give up on trying to get the page back. I gave up at one point. So I'm like, you know what? Instagram keeps hitting me with a brick wall. Like, we can't. No, it's down. Da 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 da. And then one day, randomly, I just I just randomly decided to message him again, and I was like, hey, like I'm gonna get my lawyer involved. I don't even have a lawyer. I'm gonna get my lawyer involved.
Pull the whole lawyer movie.
And then this lady's like, oh, how can I help you? I'm like, well, okay.
It's as easy as that.
Okay. And then I was like, yo, I got these claims. I'm like, I want to get them retracted. I know I can get the ones from AEW retracted for sure, but I just didn't have the claim numbers. That was the reason it was so hard to get it back. And they're like, you should have got emails from them. I'm like, I didn't. And I didn't screenshot the claims when they came up. That was my mistake. So if you guys ever get a claim in your guys' account, make sure you screenshot it so you have the number. Because I just didn't have the numbers. I was like, can you guys get me the numbers and I can get them retracted? And nobody would help me for the longest time. So like July, August, I tried all July, gave up in August. And then somewhere around like September, I was like, whatever, I'll try it again. And then finally someone started talking to me. It took until like literally November 4th on my birthday.
Oh, wow.
They hit me up and be like, your page is back. It'll be reactivated in a couple
What was
days.
that feeling like?
I was like, oh, what? Like, that's dope. But then they deleted the backup page.
Oh. So they still got...
Yeah, because I was posting videos on them. They're like, just don't post videos.
Okay.
But I think one that happened, right? So one, it allowed me to separate Justin the Wrestling Classic again, which was a big deal. I think that needed to happen, right? And I think it was like a series of events. Like 2018 was going hard, betting on myself, traveling, opening up this whole new world. 2019 was like, okay, back to reality. If I wasn't doing the Wrestling Classic, would I be working with my brother? This sucks. Oh, going all these way and see all my high school friends. Like, oh, like I was this person before this. Oh, now I lost it all. I can be that person again. Oh, I can do both and still live a good, balanced life. You know what I mean? Like,
you came at the 2.0 version of Justin.
Yeah, like,
and you're able to add in whatever you liked about the previous life.
Yeah,
and kind of just merge it
together.
together.
Like you can do both. Like it's okay to do both. You know what I mean? And I think that's what when I say like I look at my life, I'm like I think like every year there's a lesson that I learn. There's something that you pick up. And I'm an overthinker, so I think about everything way more than I probably should. Like I'll take something small and probably make it more sentimental and a bigger deal than it is. 100%, yeah. Just as long as it feels like I learned something from it or like I grew from it, because someone could look at a 2020 and just give up. You know, you start a podcast to someone, they died, they took your page down, everything's going downhill. I kind of felt that way. Even when I got the page back, I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do now?
Not to mention, you got COVID going around.
Yeah, and I'm like...
it's like everybody's trying to shift and change gears, right?
And I can't travel, I can't go to shows, and that's like the biggest thing. Like, I always say the two biggest pieces of advice I got early on was just show up places, and one of them, right? The other one's just start, like if you're gonna do something to start. But the second one was just show up places. I wasn't able to show up anymore. I couldn't leave.
You couldn't make appearances anymore, right?
Yeah, right. Okay. And it is a type of situation where it's like, and this goes for almost any career, I think, like if you're out of sight, you're out of mind. When people see you more often, when opportunities come up, they think of you. If they don't see you, then they forget about you in a moment, right? Yeah. So I didn't have that, but I think to your other part, like the rebuilding part, like it was just, I realized too at that point, like I did spend all those years building me, like as the Wrestling Classic and as the brand, and there was a ton of people that supported me regardless of what I post, and then they were going to unfollow me because I couldn't post videos anymore. Cool, but if they were going to stick around and see what I was up to, then great. And then I felt like I owed it to them to start interviewing people again. Yeah. And then I felt like, okay, I used to write articles for my own website, people like that. I stopped. Maybe I can start doing that again, but how can we get paid for it? So then I reached out to like different websites that had a sports section or whatever, but do you need someone to write wrestling articles? Yeah, I can do it, and I already have a following. How much would you pay me? Yeah. And then we started doing that with 1:37 p.m., which was Gary V's company and stuff. I hit up this, and first with the interviewing, I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I still don't think I'm a good interviewer. I don't think I am an interviewer. And I was like, I'm going to ask this one lady. She's just left WWE. And if she says yes, then we're back at it. If she says no, we're not doing it. She said yes. Right. And we were just back at it. And
let's touch upon wrestling again, about your childhood a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, wrestling for you was a big deal in your family, for yourself. Was it a family thing that you guys used to watch it with your family, your parents, or was it kind of by yourself? Like, what was that dynamic like?
I feel like everyone just put up with my obsession.
Yeah, and so
like, I think my brother started it for sure. Yeah. Obviously my cousins were all in it when we were kids and like playing the video games, and like I said, growing up in the cul-de-sac was basically a little family. We literally hung out with each other every day. They all put up with it and whatnot.
How about the parental support around it?
It's crazy because as the youngest, like I feel like there was a lot of pressure put on my brother to do something, and my sister was, it's a typical Indian type of pressure. It wasn't more about her career, but with me, it was kind of like my dad was always like, just go do whatever you want to do, like have fun, don't take life seriously. And that wasn't
That's
the
a
case.
beautiful
And
thing.
that wasn't the case with my brother. With my brother, like he was always hard on him. Like, oh, what are you gonna do? With me, he's always like, short dude, like go do whatever you want. Like,
You're the baby of the family.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it was always like I never had that pressure. But and it's kind of unfortunate. I remember I was, my dad passed away last year. And I was like, he never really knew what I did. He never, and he knew like Justin. Oh, it's Monday. Justin's gonna watch wrestling. Like he'd sit there, he'd watch it too, and like he knew what was going on. And my mom's dad used to like go to wrestling shows in Vancouver when
So
she
they were
was
part
younger.
of the culture too.
Yeah, they
to a
knew.
certain
They knew.
degree?
Yeah. And my mom's dad used to like go see Gene Kiniski at like the Cloverdale Agglodome and all this stuff. And she's like, oh, I remember those days. And they kind of knew, but they didn't know what I was doing. They didn't get it. They never really told him either. They never really asked. It was a weird, just like Justin's doing whatever Justin wants to do.
He's living his life.
Yeah,
right?
you know what I mean? It was never like a thing, but.
So you basically had their unofficial support.
And I also feel like they know I have my head on my shoulders enough to know that, like, one, I need to be able to take care of myself, make money. And also, like, a lot of us, first generation Canadian kids can understand that, like, our parents came here as immigrants and they sacrificed a lot. They sacrificed their lives and what they were doing and what their goals and dreams were, to be honest, to, like, take jobs here, whether it was, like, working in a factory or being a truck driver or a taxi driver. Like, they probably had big dreams when they were kids. And it's crazy the older you get, the more you see your parents as humans.
Yes.
And then I look at myself, I'm 32. My mom had her first kid when she was 19. My dad was 22. I'm like, if I had a kid when I was 22, I'd be an idiot.
You know what the cycle of life with a parent is, right? It's first you idolize.
Yeah.
Then you demonize.
Yeah. That makes sense, yeah.
And then you humanize. It's interesting how that happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't get to the stage of humanizing. I think you and I both got there with our fathers. It's like you go from thinking, that's my dad. He's the biggest guy around, right? Yeah. And it's like, I hate this guy.
Yeah,
right? It's like, who this guy think he is, right?
That's ruined my life. And all of my problems are because of them.
I can't believe I don't have to work. But then it's like,
they let me swear at them and stay at the house. And go to my room.
Rent free.
Yeah.
And then you realize they're like, hey man, they're just trying to figure it out themselves.
Yeah.
And you give them a little bit more, cut them some slack at the end of the day because they've been cutting you slack for so long. So it's a beautiful thing. Your
and
dad.
Like, you know how young they were when they had a lot of us.
Sacrifices,
right?
man.
Like if you when did you have your kid? How old were you?
I'm 30, I might as well say it, 38 now. It's already on social media.
So when did you have your kid?
2.5 years ago, 35. My dad had me when he was 21.
Yourself in your 20s, right? And I tried to explain this to my brother because we had my dad at different ages. My brother had my dad in his 20s. I had my dad in his 30s.
Yeah.
I'm like, by the time I had my dad, he's already at that stage where he was calming down and like
chilling out,
chilling out a bit. Yeah. I'm like, you had him when he was rowdy. That's not my fault. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
but he got a different. They got a different version. Yeah, and that's why they treat each other differently, right?
That's why they treat each other differently because he got a different version. I was like trying to explain that to him because I don't know when I became really big on the family dynamic and how it works, but it just makes a lot of sense to me, like where you land and whatever. So it's like you just had a different version. Like your perception of him and my perception of him are completely different. And
that's how both your perspectives change too, right?
Yeah, because I'm like, so now you had your kid a couple of years ago when you're 35. Like, imagine you had a kid in your 20s. Oh. That version of Sonny might have not been the greatest father.
I wasn't ready to be a father.
100%. So a lot of our parents weren't either, but that was just like the culture back then and the dynamic. And I think about it and I think I owe it to my parents to at least like live my life the way I want to live it, if anything. Mm-hmm. I owe it to anyone that's busted their ass so I could to actually do it.
Well, they made the sacrifices for you.
Yeah, like if I give up on if I give up on what I want to do, I feel like I'm giving up on everybody, not just myself. Mm-hmm. Like they've given me so much leeway and so much freedom and so much opportunity to do whatever I want to do. Why would I just waste it?
I think we should also break that down a little bit further. We're not saying my parents made sacrifices, so I'll do nothing. Yeah. What we're saying is they made the sacrifices, so we should do what we want to do to become successful in it, and which is what you did.
Success is different for everybody. And success is different for everybody. Because, like, listen, like I said, if you listen to the whole thing, like, I didn't plan this is how it should have happened, but once the ball started rolling, I can't just let it stop rolling. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe if this didn't happen, I would have continued working with my brother in real estate. I would have done something else that's a little bit more practical. Yeah. But this ball just started rolling, and I can't just, like, hey, I'm going to stop this and do this because this makes more sense. Like, no, like, every time I've many, many times I'm like, I'm going to stop doing this. I've gotten frustrated. I was going to stop. And someone would be like, you're like this close. Or someone would be like, another one of the greatest pieces of advice I got was because I was so like driven in those years where like I really was obsessed with trying to make it something. And I feel like you have to be for a bit. That's not a bad thing. If you're obsessed with something for a little bit, like I feel like you have to be for it to be successful. But there will be a point where you're like, oh, I can take a step back. I'm already like recognized. And I feel like I'm at that stage now where like I'm recognized now. I can take a step back. Like people know who I am. But there was a point where I was so obsessed, and I was hanging out with one of my friends, and she was like, for someone that's doing a lot of really cool stuff, like you're really like mad all the time, right? Like you're really annoyed, right? And I'm like, she's like, have you ever like just sat back and like made a list of the things you've done and then looked at it from someone else's perspective and think about how cool that is?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, like at that point I had it really. To be honest.
Gratitude.
And then I started looking, I'm like, yeah, like this person knows him, or I hung out with that person, or I'm friends with these people's kids, and I went to Bret Hart's house, or this person I've had conversation. Like, how many people would die to be in the Weeknd's DMs, and I could DM this guy about the stupidest shit, and he'll talk to me? Weird, right? Dumb things. But yet I should be grateful for that. But yet I'm feeling this is not enough. Like I need more, and it's like.
You want to help me with? Okay, of course, I'm not in DM. I'm not in the Weeknd's DMs, right? I'm just saying. But I think what's really helped. It's like, hey, the Weeknd, he's gonna DM you tomorrow. But what I'm trying to say is, what started helping me I started doing this exercise, and I don't do it every day, but I started doing it more so. Was actually not just having gratitude in my mind, was actually having a list. And when I started writing little things down, sometimes like, hey man, I'm happy for this sofa that I sit on when I write a book or write in my notes. I'm happy for my house or something like that, or grateful for that. I found that I'd be way more grounded and more appreciative. Yeah, and it's interesting, just small things like that.
Well, I think it's really easy for anyone, like all humans, and I think everyone needs to fall to some sort of level of depression, or maybe not full rock bottom, to really feel a full sense of gratitude. You have to almost want to be like, F all of it, to be like, oh, wait a minute, everything's actually pretty cool. And I think if you don't let yourself get this, like, I will say, and this is just my opinion. I could be wrong, guys. I'm not a psychologist. When me and my ex broke up, it was a real weird, dark time for me. And I also felt like I separated so much from my friends from high school at that point. And I made her kind of my entire life, and then when we broke up, I was kind of like fully alone. I was never really truly alone. I could hit up anybody, and everyone was cool. I've learned that now. I'm very grateful to have friends that if I haven't talked to them for years, if I hit them up now, they're the same, and I love that. But there was a time where I felt really, really low, only to realize like it's not that bad. You know what I mean? Like things could be a lot worse. And it sounds pessimistic, but I always say like things could be worse. You know, like things could always be worse.
Like Mike Tyson said before on one of his podcasts, is like the bottom is a beautiful place.
It is.
Because then you know when you're going up where you've been, right? You can't measure anything otherwise. Because you're like, if you're always here, like, oh, it's whatever.
It's great. It's
but
great.
When you hit rock bottom, that journey on the way up is a beautiful thing.
And the more stuff you struggle with, and it ends up being all right, the more you go to not be so stressed about when things get hard again. Because I feel like I've been through so much. I've had lots of money, to been like dirt broke, to like successful, to fail, to having a huge Instagram page for taken away from me, to having a lot of friends, to like having thinking. I always had a lot of friends, but thinking I had no friends when I had a lot of friends. Like I've hit so many highs and lows that now when something goes low, I'm like, I'll be all right. I'll figure it out. But it takes some time to get there, to understand that, you know?
Well, it takes time to build that.
I'm like, as long as I'm healthy and I'm not in prison, we're okay. Like, you know what I mean?
Then he's like, I'm in prison, but I'm healthy.
Yeah. Like a delusional optimist. I'm in prison, but I'm healthy. I can still look outside. But as long as I'm healthy and I'm not in prison, I'm okay. Those are two scenarios where I'd probably feel like crap.
100%. I feel like life's kind of like trying to give an analogy of like working out, wrestling, right? You know, you're putting weights on the bar. Let's call that stress levels in your life. As when you're young, you can only maybe bench press for like a quarter or whatever, 25 pounds. The older you get, you take on more stress, more liabilities, more bills, more tension, and you're able to just hold it. And to the point that that's easy for you. Yeah. And they're like, let's go more. Let's add on more weight. Let's add on more weight. So you've added on weight after weight, plate after plate, year after year, and almost literally overloaded yourself. Yeah. To the point that it got taken away, added back on. You're like, I'm good. It's muscle memory.
And that's the thing. And like, don't get me wrong, there's still chapters of my life, seasons of my life that I haven't hit. Like, I haven't had a child yet. I'm not married. That might be a whole different story and a whole different scenario. But like, as of right now, I'm at a place where I'm just like, I feel like things will always be all right. Like, things could always be worse. I also really do believe, it's a little, to switch gears a little bit, but there's that quote from Jim Carrey where he talks about his dad and how his dad got fired from a job, but he was a great, like instrument player or something, musician or something. He was like, you can fail at something you love rather than failing at something you don't love. And I believe that because anytime something goes wrong with this wrestling stuff, at least I know I like it. There's one thing I forgot to say when you talked about losing the page and how I felt. At that point, I remember thinking, what else do I want to do? I'm like, it still has to do with wrestling. There's nothing else I want to do. Name any job. I really don't want to do it. Like,
Yeah.
you can say like, oh, you can go become a realtor, you go back to school and become an economist, or you can get a mortgage. I'm like, I can do these things for sure. I can probably try to do them. I'm pretty book smart. I'll probably pass. I'll get a license. I don't want to do any of them. Like, my heart's not going to be in it. I'm not driven to succeed in any of these fields. I've been spoiled now. Now I need to make something out of this.
Okay, so that's really important you mentioned that, because a lot of people will say, you know what, this pays the bills, I have to do this. Me playing,
circumstances, right?
Just give you an example, right? Somebody's like, well, jumping rope is my favorite thing, right?
Yeah.
That's not going to pay the bills, right? But how did you find, how fulfilling is your new role? Like, do you feel like every day, like, I'm living my dream?
100%.
Yeah.
I make money doing stuff with wrestling. Do I make tons of money? Some months I do, and sometimes I don't. But
it's not about the money.
It's not about the money.
That's the best part. It's not about the money.
It's not about the money. And I'm fortunate enough that it doesn't have to be. Like I said,
Yes.
people have different circumstances, different family dynamics. So if you're in a situation where it's like you had to go make that money, you had to help support your family, you had to support your mom or something, or you like had a kid, like, I understand. Yeah. I completely understand. But once again, I'm going to take whatever advantages I have, whatever opportunities I have, I'm trying to make the most out of them. I don't want to waste my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And my idea of success is being able to do what I want to do, not doing what like I think I'm supposed to do. Like I don't like I do eventually when I'm capable of, but like right now I don't want to own anything. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't
worry,
want
it's pretty hard right now as it is.
Yeah, I don't want that stress on my shoulder. People like,
you got freedom.
You know, like I have like family members like younger than me, like my little cousins. I'm so proud of them. They're killing it, right? Like I love my little cousins, right? They're not even little no more. They're all like in their 20s, but they're still like my little cousins.
Yeah.
They're like all buying their first condos and like doing this stuff and working on their investments. And then I feel like someone asked me like, "What don't you want?" I'm like, I don't. Like I actually don't, because the moment I do that, I'm tying myself down here. The moment I buy a property here or a condo or something, then I have to pay a mortgage, and then I'm like stuck here, and then I have to make the mortgage payment. Like, I don't have to worry about any of that. So I can keep running and chasing. I don't want to tie myself down in anything that's like I could if I wanted to, but I don't want to.
That's so important you mentioned that. I know where I deal with lending, right?
Yeah.
But it's very important you mentioned that.
It's a commitment.
It's a commitment.
Yeah.
It's a liability and it's a commitment. So I mean, if somebody's saying I want to go do XYZ and follow my dreams, but I want to buy this, it's like, listen, that's a commitment here.
Yeah.
We call it a commitment letter. And if you do want to do that, just remember that some things you have to sacrifice.
Yeah.
And if you want to go down, your path, which is a beautiful path, remember that you
don't
have to do this.
Sacrifice
there's multiple ways to do life. You don't have to follow that
route. And I feel like that's like sometimes, and people like think that's the route you're supposed to go. And I'm like, I don't think that's a route for me. And I've been having a great time not doing that route, and it is a commitment. I had a conversation with a close friend of mine from high school at the Super Bowl party. We hadn't talked in a minute, and we were just catching up, small talking. And he was talking about like, my dating situation. I tell him, like I'm single, but like I've had like things here and there. I'm like, I just haven't dated. Like, long story short, I'm like, I haven't really ever dated a girl in the past 4 or 5 years where if she was gonna go date someone else, I'd actually be like so like heartbroken.
All right, wait. While we're on dating subject, let's put it out there. Looks like Justin is a available bachelor. This is not Tinder. This is not any of those apps.
Yeah.
We're going to put it out there. But let's actually talk about how can people reach you, so that way, just in case there's some bachelorettes out there.
Follow me on Instagram at Justin Dillon. It's a little bit easier to contact me on there than the wrestling class.
There you go. Will you accept DMs?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. But
and you guys can't get to the weekend through him, by the way. You got to go straight to him. Hold me.
But so like he was explaining to me, and he said it himself. He's like, you know what? He's like, you're living life, you're doing it, it's going great for you. But he's like, just know, like, anytime you make one of those decisions, when you actually do decide to settle down, or you do decide to maybe have a kid or something, he's like, you're gonna have to sacrifice something. Yeah. And I'm like, that's the part I understand. And I don't know if I'm ready to do that yet. I'm not sure if I'm ready to make such big commitments after you gave me that plug. Because I have to sacrifice what I'm doing, right? And I think that's been the biggest barrier for me. In terms of commitment, like if I ever said a commitment issues, that's why. Because it's just like I need someone to understand, like kind of maybe doing the same thing, or just understands a little bit impractical. It's like it's a little impractical. It really is.
It is absolutely.
It is.
And let's be honest, man. You did actually sacrifice a lot by taking this journey. Yeah. It's a road less traveled. Yeah. And it's very uncertain. This is very, I guess, more drawn out, and there's more people that have been on it.
There's a higher success rate doing it the right way.
There you go.
And I'm saying the right way. I should say the more common way.
More common way.
Yeah. There's a better success rate. You have a better chance of buying that property, maybe like using it as collateral for a loan, and having more money, and then buying another property. Now you're like building a whole business that way. And that's super cool if you can do that. That's dope.
That's dope
I've
too.
seen really successful people do that stuff. I mean, my brother's killing out doing stuff like that. You know what I mean? So like, I understand that works. I understand that method works. It's amazing. I want my cousins to do that. I don't want them just to buy this one. I want them to use that.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's still like, I mean, I think don't want people to confuse it the fact that, oh, this is sacrifice. This is not. This is still huge sacrifice.
Yeah.
Because this is not guaranteed.
It's a risk.
There's a tremendous amount of chance of failure. This is calculated. This is calculated.
And then you got to make sure you can rent that place and you can, like, I understand. Like, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm saying it's some place where I don't understand. I understand how that's a hustle in its own way.
100%. We're getting close to the end here, Justin. You and I can go for hours, and I'm sure we're going to do it again. But I really wanted to touch upon who you are as a person and an individual. And I think we kind of touched upon that today. We'll do this one again. Justin, what's something you're excited for that's coming up in the next 6, 12, 18 months, what people should look out for?
Nah, that's crazy. Everything, man.
Everything just fun.
I'm going to be honest with you. Like, if I was to sum everything up, and I think this is a flaw. This is a character flaw. This isn't something I'm positive about. I like not having like such great structure.
Okay.
I don't like having a routine. I like waking up thinking any day could be anything.
Yeah.
Like I could wake up today and by the end of today, like I could be doing this or that could happen or this could happen. And I just think every day is exciting.
Total freedom.
I think life is exciting. I think life can be really boring sometimes and it can be a bummer and bad things happen and sad things happen. But for the most part, it's really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's everything to look forward to. And for everyone, there's something for all of you to look forward to. If you think there's nothing to look forward to, you're just like not being optimistic enough.
What's your message to somebody that's starting out that wants to get into wrestling or some sort of form of wrestling? What should they do?
Just start. Okay. Break all your barriers. Don't worry about what anybody thinks. Just start.
Is it too late for that?
It's never too late.
Okay.
It's never. You can be like 40 years old and you want to start something. It's never too late.
In the wrestling game, right?
Wrestling game, any game.
Marketing in terms of...
You want to start a show? You want to start a podcast? You can start it.
Master your life, you can do it right now.
At any point, I don't think it's too late to do anything. I used to think, I remember when we were younger and we were like 17, 18 years old and we thought you guys were old. And you guys were just like 25, 26, okay?
No, we're like 20. We're like 21.
You know what I mean? So like I thought you guys were old. And then I'm like 32 and I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm still 25 sometimes. It's like I don't think like there isn't no proper plan. No one's too late. No one's too early. You're not falling behind or you're not way ahead either. Just live your life on your terms. Stop comparing it to everybody else. Just start and do whatever you want to do. Do what you have to do because you have to do it, but also just make time to do what you want to do. Like try to, whatever that is, just try to. Maybe it'll be successful, maybe it won't. But as long as you're enjoying it, who cares?
Absolutely.
You want to go start a sports podcast and talk about football? Do it. You never know. Maybe it'll get so popular you're on the NFL network one day. And I've seen that happen to people. Right? Like you want to start a YouTube channel where you're cooking, do it. This is the world that we live in now where content is everything. You can put content out there as long as you are down to like put your barriers down and not care, like you can literally do anything.
Absolutely, man. Justin, it's been a pleasure having you today, man. I'm looking forward to doing this again. Thanks, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Keep doing the thing.
100%.